Thank you, Canan Esoy, for your informative and thought-provoking speech. The first panel of the day is the CEO panel on Tone at the Top Matters, moderated by Paul Smith, co-founder of Sustain Finance and former CEO of CFA Institute. I will kindly invite our esteemed panelists in alphabetical order to the stage, please. Burak Kuyan, CEO of Galata Wind. Güliz Öztürk, CEO of Pegasus Airlines. Orçun Makal, Partner and Head of Capital and Debt Advisory, Central and Eastern Europe at EY. Şevki Acuner, Independent Board Member of Tekfen Holding and Chairman of the Board of Sensbank Ukraine. Dr. Yılmaz Arguden, Chairman of Arge Consulting.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. It's great to be here. I really, often one says these things, but this morning it's true. I have a truly distinguished and wonderful panel for you today, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what they have to say. We have to be finished on this panel by 11, as one or two of the panelists have prior engagements. So without further ado, I'm going to crack on. And Dr. Arguden, Arge Consulting was the first Turkish signatory to the UN Global Compact, so I know sustainability is a subject that's dear to your heart. You sit on many, many boards, so please set up our conversation today. We've just heard from Ms. Orjoy, which was a wonderful speech that in many ways led very perfectly into what we have to discuss. So how should we think about sustainability? And indeed, can you define for us what sustainability means, or ESG as it's sometimes called? And secondly, and most importantly, how should a well-functioning board approach sustainability and embed it into corporate life? Over to you.
Thank you all my colleagues. First of all, I would like to congratulate those who are organizing this important conference. Thanks, Canan Hanım, for a wonderful setting for the conference. Our theme is the board's responsibilities or governance matters for sustainability. First of all, one should say that the most important responsibility of the board is a fiduciary responsibility. And the word fiduciary comes from faith and trust. Okay? And faith and trust are extremely important for any company or any institution to have sustainable success. If you don't have the trust of your stakeholders, you're not going to have a sustainable success. And as a matter of fact, this is not a new thing. When we look at it, the Babylonian Code for Hammurabi, which is about 4,000 years ago, has defined these responsibilities of those who take care of the assets of others. Similarly, about 2,500 years ago, Aristo has put forward that those who undertake the responsibility to lead or manage others' assets need to be honest and need to be fair and diligent. So these concepts are not that new. As a matter of fact, when we look at sustainability, sustainability is the basis of all the religions, which are the oldest institutions in the world. Well, even coming from shamanism to all the religions, basically, they try to have a social justice, protect the environment, and be fair to others. Regard the other as you regard yourself. So these concepts are not new concepts, as a matter of fact. However, we are not taking as much sustainability issues into our decision-making as we should be, because we are more focused on what is measured for the short term. And that determines our actions. One thing that I would please ask you to remember is, first of all, how we should think and how we should talk about these matters. For example, I would like to change, although I don't think I will be successful, but I would regardless make the point, the concept of ESG. ESG is not sufficient or proper for us to understand the importance of sustainability and how we should think about this in our governance mechanism. Why? First of all, when we say ESG, it is adjunct to financial. The main thing is financial, these other things are adjunct. Whatever is adjunct is not paid sufficient attention to. That's why I don't want to use ESG, one. Second, in the E and S are impact areas, which is environment and social. Governance is about how. When we put all of them together, it is like apple, pear, and a ball. You cannot eat governance. It's not an impact area, it's how you do it. And when you put ESG, G is considered in people's minds mostly as compliance, paying the taxes, and so forth, whereas governance is the most important issue about how we think and how we decide in the corporate life. So what I would suggest is G's, governance of economic, environmental, and social, rather than ESG. If I can change in your minds the concept from ESG to G's, I think that would be a very good way of starting how we should think about sustainability matters. And the other point that I would like to make in the G's is the economic, is more than financial. Financial is what you capture out of the value for your company. Economic is what kind of value creation you focus on the whole value chain. So whoever is responsible for governance, and these are the boards, need to focus on not only what is due to us, but rather on, first, value creation throughout the value chain, which is economic. All of our impacts to the environment, E, the second E, and all the social impacts of our decisions. So we need to think in terms of G's instead of ESG. It is not adjunct. We have to consider all the factors at the same time. In order to be able to do this, we need to shape our mind and expand our outlook in a number of different dimensions. First was the mindset on sustainability that I mentioned. We need to think about G's. Second, we need to think about our impact areas. Because for value creation, mostly what you measure gets done. And we are mostly focusing on finance. But value creation is not only about financial resources. You can get access to financial resources easier than intellectual resources, for example. Which of our companies or which of our boards are measuring how we are developing the intellectual capability of our organization? If you're not measuring, you're not managing. So we need to think about other forms of capital, intellectual capital, social capital, environmental capital, and so forth, and try to measure them, even though they may not be as precise as financial measures, because we have whole departments, accounting departments who measure that, but no one measures anything about intellectual development. If we don't do that, we cannot create value in a sustainable fashion. So we need to start focusing on this. And I think integrated thinking and integrated reporting is a very good step, and it is part of the IFRS's framework as well, although it's not mandatory. I highly recommend you to consider that because it is an important value creation opportunity by looking at it from this perspective. Another point that we need to expand our minds is the time frame of our impacts. If we just focus on short term, then we are going to face the long term rather than shaping the long term. If you want to shape the long term, we have to take steps to manage the long term. For example, particularly in our country, Turkey, the best managers are considered for those who are able to fight with the fire effectively. Yes, when there's a fire, we have to fight with the fire. But if you don't invest in preventing the fire, you will always try to continue to fight with the fire. So we need to think about longer term. We need to expand our horizon a little bit as well, more than a little bit. We need to change our mindset from materiality, and even IFRS is not there yet. Single materiality versus double materiality. If something is important for any of our stakeholders, you can be sure that inevitably it's going to become an important for us in the long term, mid and long term, either as a risk or as a regulation or whatever. And so if you don't foresee those sufficiently ahead of time, the amount of resources you will have to spend to overcome those things would be much higher. The earlier you start, the more effective you will be. So double materiality is very important. Listen to your stakeholders. Identify what their concerns are, which is very important as well. Then we need to consider the impacts of our decisions, not only on the financial side. We should not be only looking at the financial feasibility of a decision or an investment, but also the impact of that particular investment on the social life, economics for all of our value chain, environment, and so forth. So the impact areas, the areas that we need to consider needs to be expanded. And finally, we need to also focus on and broaden our scope of responsibilities. Better leaders are not those who can manage their own company only, but those who can shape the future with collective action, collaboration with others as well. This is extremely important. If nobody takes responsibility for the future, we will face the future that comes to us. If we collectively try to shape the future, we will prepare the future we want. And these are, I think, responsibilities of the board, start from the board. And in order to do this responsibility properly, first of all, we need to start with the composition of the board. We need to have people who understand these concepts, as I mentioned, and focus on these types of things. Second, we need to have our processes incorporate these matters into our decision-making. The data that is prepared, the type of feasibility that's prepared, we have to look at the impact analysis, ex post analysis of our decisions and so forth to be able to learn from them. Then we need to identify and pick the right managers with these types of concepts, as well as incentivize them accordingly. If we don't incentivize them, if you incentivize only short-term performance, they are not going to invest in the long-term areas which matter. So our incentivization systems need to change as well. One of the things that we are doing to improve learning in this area is a sustainability governance scorecard that we share with the TÜYID to the Turkish audience as well. And we are reviewing how governance is provided to the sustainability matters among the global leaders in sustainability. And what we are trying to do here in this part, this is Sustainability Governance Scorecard, is publicly available. You can find it in the web and so forth. All of our questions and good examples and so forth. Our motivation is to speed up global learning from best-in-class examples. Okay? Because sustainability performance is context-specific. It depends on the sector, it depends on the technology, it depends on the geography and so forth. And it has so many dimensions that it is difficult to compare across companies. But sustainability governance, how you approach sustainability, is not context-specific. Therefore, we can learn from many different industries, many different geographies and so forth. And this is why these types of concepts that I have mentioned, there are very good companies who do parts and pieces of this, but not as a whole. And we can learn from, all of us can learn from each other by identifying the good examples. And this particular research is trying to demonstrate better examples to speed up global learning on how we should be looking at global on the sustainability matter. In short, I would like to leave you with two ideas. One of them is, please, not ESG, but Gs. We need to provide our governance on all impacts, and this requires a major effort in reshaping our incentive systems, processes, compositions, and so forth. And second, let's try to learn from others who are doing good examples. And we should not be just looking at who is the best, who is ranking higher. That's not the point. The point is, where are the good examples, how we can utilize it to improve our own performance. And the solution is expanding our perspective on governance, impact areas, time frame, and stakeholders, composition of the stakeholders, to focus on all materiality matters. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Dr. Arvind. That's really set us up very nicely. I'd like to turn to Mr. Arjunash next. Senior board member, as you all know, of many important companies here in Turkey. Perhaps bring it down for us to a little more specific thoughts around industries. How do we make sustainability relevant throughout the industrial complex? After all, each company is different. How does that work? And most importantly, I think, how does one make sustainability a competitive advantage out there? I'd love to hear your thoughts on those subjects.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I hope you can hear me now. I know you do. I just want to have a little prelude. I think this rise in awareness of sustainability is really resulting from the increase, the rise in investor, consumer, social, and broader public conscience that we just don't have to worry about ourselves, but we have to worry about our future. And the impact of social media, where the activism is now worldwide, globally based, and there is nowhere to hide for people who are not bearing their responsibility. Coming to what Canan Hanım has said about definition of sustainability, that it is in a way enabling the future generations to enjoy the same quality of life as we do now. And I would just humbly add to that, I think it's also in that way, search for immortality, in a similar way that we try to have offsprings, that we try to now, or we have reached that level of conscience that future generations is also part of us, our continuation. Now, the specific question of how do you deal with different sectors rising up to this challenge, which is essential and which then perhaps has to be put in the context of competitiveness. I mean, we first of all see this as how should I put it, as an ability or seeking an ability to improve your situation vis-à-vis your consumers, vis-à-vis your employees, vis-à-vis everybody that you deal with, your ecosystem, by showing that sense of responsibility, and as a result, I think keeping their custom, keeping their loyalty. But also on the other side of this equation is, of course, the sort of desire to reach to a broader pool of investment, the financial resources, that there is this very special asset class that is now created over the years, reaching several $100 billion, $1 trillion almost, that green finance, sustainable finance is available for those who want to propagate, who want to improve their situation, their, how should I say, reduce the impact that they have on the society. So while self-regulation is brilliant in our capitalist world, I think this area of sustainability also needs a lot of policy. A lot of policy, a lot of monitoring, because we, as Yilmaz Bey is saying, we are living a pretty much, unfortunately, dog-eat-dog world, that your results from one quarter to the next are the primary determinant of your bonus, your future as leader in your organization. So one has to force a change apart from collectively each industry and economy in broader sense tries, perhaps attempts to collaborate. That will come, but I don't think we reached that level of consciousness yet. We haven't reached that stage of maturity yet. There are things that you could perhaps explore. I mean, through not just looking at shareholder return, but measuring a company on total stakeholder return. And that includes, by definition, then your performance in this G, but also E&S as part of your success measurement. So, those are the type of things that one could think of creating to promote sustainability. What I would say is a lot of this, at least in its initial stages, came from, of course, IFIs, International Financial Institutions, World Bank starting it, EBRD coming now to a stage where it is defining itself as a green bank and seeking a sustainable green element to their funding conditions for any enterprise, and other institutions are joining. And then that being taken up by the financial sector as a whole. And because financial institutions are probably closer to us emotionally, because they manage our money, so we think we own them, and which we do. And therefore, the profile of leadership of financial institutions is much more susceptible to broader social and stakeholder, shareholder influence. And I think the governments around the world have realized that and are using financial institutions as one of the main levers for promoting sustainability agenda across the country. But in my view, you would need a much more cohesive, comprehensive policy of sustainability that everybody can see and understand, and everybody is a part of. It's like developing, we used to have in Turkey, I don't know if we still do, these 5-year development plans by the state planning organization that sort of outline the sector strategy for the entire economy. Maybe we need a 5-year, 10-year, 15-year sustainability program that everybody then sees what the government policies will be, and they will benefit from state support according to their compliance with those parameters of the sustainability 5-year, 10-year plans. I would like to, just perhaps pick up on what you said here. The ownership, and I think everybody, the previous three speakers also stressed that. You have to have an ownership of this at the institutional level. That while I'm sure every employee in any organization values on an individual basis, in their work, in their institution, that imperative has to come from the board of directors. And the board, therefore, has to be fully aware, trained in aspects of sustainability, in aspects of climate challenges that we all face, and then set, as you said, Yilmaz Bey, targets for the senior management to follow, and then for shareholders to judge the boards and the leadership on that basis. That is probably coming in, I mean, in the organizations that we were sitting on, and I'm still sitting on, there's an element of now bringing that sustainability performance to the judgment of annual assessment of the chief executive, but you need a much broader pursuit, much broader application of that practice, because we still have a huge swathe of small and medium-sized enterprises where this has to be equally embraced for this to be success. You know, one thing I think in earlier speeches I said, you know, climate doesn't just hang about one region or one country. It's a global thing. So therefore, it has to be both countrywide, but it also has to be equally embraced on a global basis. And these, you know, conferences and everything else we talk about are a great effort towards that. But in perhaps not taking too much time, what we also have to focus on is how do we support these lesser developed countries to be able to cope with the challenges and this, you know, damage and whatever fund that is supposed to be have finally created really has to work, because we know that it is the industrialized world that has caused much of the damage that we're having to deal with now, and those poorer countries, in their efforts to catch up with the rest of the world in terms of standard of living and everything else, of course, are challenged if they have to deploy very expensive technologies in order to be, you know, climate sort of neutral, energy efficient. So we have to take this as a global mission for all of us. It's a mission for immortality. So thank you.
Thank you. What a thought to leave us with. We're very lucky this morning because we have two CEOs, and I want to talk to Ms. Öztürk first. Because we don't have much time, and I know you don't have much time, I'm going to run both of the questions that I had for you into one. So tell us about Pegasus Airlines. You're in the forefront of the sustainability fight, and I know that is something that you take incredibly seriously. Tell us about how you've implemented that within the airline industry, the struggles perhaps you've had with your board to convince them. I think we'd all find that very interesting. The competitive advantage perhaps that you've eked out from that. And then finally, I know, and I'd be very remiss of me to leave this hanging, gender equality is something that you're passionate about within Pegasus. So please take us through your thinking there, what you're doing about it, and how you're hoping that that will build resilience within your industry.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, yes, because I have, in terms of time, I think I have to catch another meeting. Thanks for the question, and good morning to everyone. And now for Pegasus, let me first take an overview of how we see the aviation sector, because as an airline, of course, sustainability is not a challenge we can ignore. However, it seems, and it is thought, to pose a big challenge to the airlines in terms of environment. However, airline sector is the responsible from the emissions around 2 to 3% of the total greenhouse emissions, whereas the road transport is 6-7 times higher. Now, I'm not saying, of course, that because airlines are not responsible of that much amount of like road transport that we should be hiding behind this. No, of course, we are not saying this. And the aviation sector was one of the leading sectors which has taken steps forward, put bold targets, and taken initiative fast enough. IATA, which is the International Air Transport Association, has announced net zero emission by 2050. It was back in 2021 during the COVID period, and we as Pegasus Airlines were the first to sign that pledge. Now, when we have signed this, we were aware that we have to back up this with a scientific approach, with measures behind it, because it's not something that you say it and then you live it. Sustainability for the sake of sustainability. And it's easy, of course, because none of us in the aviation sector who is talking about net zero in 2050 will not be around at that time. So what we have done, we have strengthened that net zero target by putting interim measures for 2030, which we may be around at least, reducing emissions by 20. Our target is to reduce our carbon intensity by revenue passenger kilometer by 20% compared to 2019. So first, it was a strategy designed by ourselves. I was lucky as the CEO because our board is so supportive on sustainability issues, both gender equality, diversity, and environment issues. They are tracking this at the corporate governance committee level. Yılmaz Hocam knows very well our board composition. And their backgrounds are different, but they're all following these sustainability issues in their own areas of expertise. So they follow on the corporate governance committees during the board meetings. Last year we had presented to our board our 6 strategic focus areas and our plans going forward for 3 to 5 years. And I got the approval for it, and sustainability was one of those 6 strategic focus areas. Last month at the board meeting, for example, we have again got the approval of decarbonization roadmap of Pegasus from today to 2050. I mean, like after 2035, it's vague. I mean, we cannot talk very specifically on that period, but at least we're trying to design our steps until 2030, 2035, so that we see how we will look at year 2050. But the first enabler for us, for Pegasus, is the fleet investment. Now we're running 100 aircraft, which you may have seen that on Saturday we have received the 100 aircraft, which is called Cumhuriyet, our 100 aircraft at the anniversary of the Republic of Turkey. So we're very proud of that. And the fleet age is 4.7 years old. This is very rare for an airline of 100 aircraft size. And we are one of the youngest fleet in Europe. Why? Because this fleet investment is a huge investment. At the same time, this type of aircraft is the newest generation, less fuel efficient aircraft type, Airbus 321neos. It's consuming 20% less fuel. Now, this investment allows us to reduce the carbon emission at the source. We'll look at this way, and we keep on transforming our fleet into this new generation aircraft. We have, until 2029, we have another 78 Airbus 321neos to include into our fleet. So this fleet renewal and fleet investment was the first step when we had signed the agreement in 2011. Of course, it's economically viable, but at the same time, environment friendly. Because I just personally believe that, I mean, environment without economics, economics without environment is not viable, right? So with this fleet investment, of course, it's not only fuel issue. Yes, 95% of our carbon emissions in the aviation sector is coming from fuel consumption, of course. But at the same time, at Pegasus, we have several initiatives, like we have electricity vehicles we use on our ground operations. We reduce waste on our onboard cabin services. And last year, our carbon disclosure project score was, for example, A-, which is among the 5 airlines globally at the leadership score. So I think these are valuable, and this makes us to have targets in front of us, be passionate on them, and measure the progress continuously. So the second one, second enabler is sustainable aviation fuel, which is the production of it is very low right now. So as Yılmaz Hoca has said, it's a stakeholder management, it's an ecosystem, as Şevki Bey said. We have to have SAF to be produced in Turkey, and of course it's a global action we're taking towards IATA. Otherwise, a net zero by 2050 is not achievable. So we want the government to be in the picture, airports, like air navigation service manufacturer, oil producers, to increase the production of SAF, and Pegasus is an active member. We have our sustainability office, 70 volunteers within the company who are working for these projects, and we're following the projects in Turkey for the production of SAF, which I see a key point in this net zero emission, because I was in Lisbon last week in a conference, aviation conference. They're asking if it is achievable. I mean, everybody is asking, like, if it is achievable. Yes, it is. Is it an easy target? No. Is it achievable? Yes, but there are prerequisites for them. So that's the sustainability in terms of environment issues. When we come to the social front, we are also active there. Pegasus, in its DNAs, since many years are very active, and gender equality, diversity is a way of living within the company. The culture is inclusive culture, so it wasn't an issue which we have discussed. But we had numerous initiatives, like we were the first to sign UN Women Empowerment Principles platform. In 2019, we signed the Pledge of IATA 25 by 2025. So Pegasus was, and also the climate within the company is gender free. I mean, we don't see each other like we have female participation, male participation. The diverse culture is very appreciated. However, when I have been appointed as the CEO by May last year, of course my priority was to foster this gender equality and diversity within the company, because I'm very few female leaders in the aviation sector globally, unfortunately. Aviation is a very male, well, I will not say dominated, but male, with lots of male colleagues working. Why? Because there are many roles gender associated, like pilots, technicians. At the management level, there is very low female representation. So my priority was, of course, this, and I want to follow it like a daily activity. It's not something, a side product, because aviation is itself a very a sector full of crisis, individual crisis, global crisis. So if you look at only those, you can never deal with this type of global pains or global issues. And I wanted to bring all those initiatives followed within the company under one roof. And we launched by the beginning of this year our diversity, equality, inclusion program, which we call Pegasus Harmony. And under Pegasus Harmony, we have several initiatives now. What is important is we're trying to specify our targets and then measure the progress. So by this, I will be able to also report to the board how the recruitment is going, how the culture within the company, how the career planning is, because the board is expecting to see the gender diversity also within our career planning. This is this is a homework from the board to the management. And I'm a sponsor of this Pegasus Harmony program within the company. Our management level, the management is also sponsoring it. And it's new right now by the beginning of this year, but I'm sure, that it's giving its results. Like Pegasus sees the results, like, when we have diverse teams, they are better at decision making, they are better at creativity, more innovation, because diversity brings that productivity. So it's not something romantic that we're talking about, that men and women should be balanced or so. There are numbers associated with it. So Pegasus is keen on following and keeping the track on gender equality and diversity, equality and inclusion. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Can you just one quick follow-up question, and then I'm going to let you go, is how do you actually measure the financial impact of diversity? I mean, I think that's terribly difficult in my experience to do. I mean, how do you approach that?
Yeah, terribly difficult. At the company level, it's difficult. We know there are researches which says that it was, I think, World Economic Forum or from Gartner that which says the diverse teams where there is female and male ratio is balanced, those companies are having around 15 to 20% more delivering financial performance in EBITDA level. But it's right now, you cannot measure it like your yield, your revenue, if you do this, and your CASK, your cost. It's not easy. But what we are trying to do is, there are general researches like that. And if you want to have that innovation in the aviation sector, and Pegasus is a leading brand on that, then you need different people from different backgrounds. That brings the result, and I think we will be able to also measure this in the coming years when we have those small teams bringing out results in terms of project levels, and we will also get them maybe the KPIs, the performance KPIs in going forward.
On that front, you don't necessarily have to measure absolute, but you should measure relative performance. And I think this is what I think you're referring to, that it's very difficult to quantify it,
very difficult.
but you can see the relative importance of it.
Exactly. And
Please put your hands together for Ms. Ozdok. She's got to fly. She's got a very important meeting. Let me let you go. Thank you so much. Thank you. Right. Moving on. Mr. Kuyen, another CEO. We're so delighted to have you here at Galata Wind. Tell us about some of the things you've heard this morning, whether particularly from Ms. Ozdok, the way that you've got your board on side, the way that you've developed your thinking. Obviously, the wind industry is interesting in that there are two views on how sustainable it is and how much value it adds to the environmental conversation. So very happy to hear your views on that. But also, we've heard a little bit about regulation, particularly from Shefki Bey. Tell us how regulation impacts your industry, how you're working on education with the regulators, how you're working on regulation with your broader stakeholder base, education within your broader stakeholder base to prepare the groundwork for your industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Good morning to everyone. The only answer that I have for it as of now is dilemmas. Because lots of dilemmas are going on in wind industry. The reason why it's new sector and has own characteristics. But however, there are many challenges in wind industry that I have to mention. I know that we have time constraints. I have a plane to catch as well because I'm going to be short as I can, but I need to give you some glimpse of what we are facing and what's happening in the wind industry. The first of all, the question that everyone should ask is, what is the alternative? Okay? Currently, wind and solar, from my point of view, is the best solution for sustainable world and clean energy system. But however, I know that there are some opposing ideas regarding the wind technology, the turbines, the blades. But what is the alternative? Coal, nuclear, natural gas. Let's discuss how clean are they. But however, we are discussing the wind energy. Also, as human beings, we shouldn't be hypocrites. Why I'm telling this? Because today, all of us is in technology. All of us has 1, 2 simple cell phones, iPads, laptops. and we need electricity for life. How should we generate this electricity then? The question comes up. Look, there are some obstacles in renewable energy. Even though wind or solar is the heart of sustainability, but the resource of these are not sustainable because you don't have 100% wind all the day or solar all the day. And as countries, you have to balance this because there are some needs. In some countries, like small countries, I can give you the name Sweden, they generate 65% of their electricity from renewables. Very good ratio. But however, is it possible to do in Turkey? No, because the thing is, Sweden is a very low population country, small country, comparison to Turkey. But however, if you go to bigger sizes, bigger populations, you need different alternatives. Yeah, for that we need technology. There are some new developments in renewable energy sector, especially batteries and hydrogen. Battery storage and hydrogen will, I think, overcome the problem of balancing the electricity generation. All of us want clean world, and as I said, we need clean energy. But I'm going to give you exact, like, real-life experiences. Currently, we are trying to build up new wind plants within Turkey as of now. But everyone says, I'm in favor of clean energy, but please don't do on my side. So where? Where should we do it? Everyone says, okay, you're cutting trees. Okay, comparison to, we had this Akbalan experience in Turkey. You know, in order to generate coal, they had to cut tons of trees. But I just tried to come up with the numbers. Just for wind turbine, around 10 to 15 trees has to be cut. This is, I think, bearable. Because as Galata Wind, as companies, what we are trying to aim and what we are trying to do is like do tenfold of what we cut. I know this is not 100% replacement, but we are trying, we are aiming, we are working on it. You know, there are lots of obstacles in front of renewable energy because of the, as Mr. Şevket has mentioned, regulation is another big dilemma. I know that countries are as well trying to be sustainable, and they're imposing new regulations to renewable energy market, but what they don't understand, what we are trying to educate them on is it's making renewable energy become alive impossible. New environmental regulations that has been imposed in Turkey, and when I look at the scene and when I look at the regulations, from now on it's very tough, very tough to execute those kind of projects in Turkey. But as now, we do have this paradigm. Russian-Ukraine war has imposed us, has told us, in order to keep sustainable, you have to depend on your own resources. Therefore, EU imposed new regulations for extending the renewable capacity. But is it enough? It's not enough. Because we have to support it with the regulations as well. Because we need to understand, like as Mr. Arguna has mentioned, we have to shape the future from today. And renewable energy is a way, the first way I think. There are lots of points in sustainability, but clean energy is the core. Therefore, clean energy has to be supported. And we need to educate governments, we need to educate communities, we need to educate regular people. We have lots of things to do. As I say, currently, it's impossible for me because I'm going to villages, people, talking to people. Like, we have to convince them, we have to educate them as well in our processes, you know. But it's getting tougher, tougher, tougher each day. And this is all I can tell in this short time period. But if you have any question, I'm open to.
Absolutely, it's depressing.
Interesting. Sorry for keeping you depressed, but no, that's not the point. Because we have to be, as humans, as I said, like, we shouldn't be hypocrites. We should decide, okay, what do we need? Which is better? Because having a flu is good or dying. You have to choose flu. Sorry, but yeah. But we don't want to we don't want to die, we don't want to have flu. Okay, perfect world. So why do we have medicine?
And the regulatory environment here in Turkey, is it supportive of you at the moment? I mean, you were a little sort of negative there, I thought. I mean, what would you like to see practically?
Look, Paul, like in the beginning, Turkey has supported clean energy 100%. With the feed-in tariff, with the other regulations, with the incentives, they have fully supported. In 2005, Turkish capacity in renewable energy was around 0. I don't count the hydro energy in renewable energy. That's another topic and discussion. But in my sense, renewable energy is mostly wind, solar, geothermal, biomass kind of stuff, hydrogen. So therefore, in 2005, Turkey was around 0. Currently, we do have 25,000, more than 25,000 megawatts installed capacity in 15 years. It's a huge success. But with the new developments in sustainability and awareness of environmental issues, new regulations impose more environmental regulations. So it makes it tougher or impossible for renewable energy to come alive. So, Ms. Canan has mentioned in the morning, chicken and egg situation. So what we have to do is we have to be communicative with each other. We have to explain. I think as a renewable energy sector representative, we do have to make much better work explaining ourselves, explaining the realities. Because if we don't, then I was more optimistic regarding the future. But each day, I'm becoming more negative side.
Oh dear. That at least is an honest view, and
we do have to talk about the realities.
No,
we have to talk about the realities. Everything is not nice. Everything is not very good. You know, there are obstacles that we have to overcome in life. There are many problems in realities. So everyone is saying, okay, perfect world, clean energy, clean life, environmentally friendly. But the realities are different. In financial sector has to impose new regulations, which they are. In Turkey, some of the banks are not providing loans to thermal power plants.
Well, society has some trade-offs that it
this is not just for
needs to think about. Yeah.
Our job. Also, many other sectors, everyone, governments, has to involve in this and help clean energy sustain. Sorry for
Thank you. That's excellent. I think we all want to hear the truth. So thank you for that.
Paul, I have to catch a plane, so therefore I need to
run.
leave on.
I'm losing my panel piece by piece. Thank you very much. Yes, please. You've been very patient. Thank you, Mr. Chow. In many ways, it's a great setup for you in terms of the problems. I want you to talk about.
Do you know the negative side of being the latest panelist.
What is the negative side?
You forget your speech. Because
But
you
the
have to listen to everybody and you forget your
The
speech.
positive side is you have a lot of material now to work with.
Of course. I'll do my best, of
So
course.
focus on that.
Let's
I want you to talk about greenwashing and the challenges,
Sure.
the challenges that companies face in terms of matching, and we've heard of that a little
Yeah, of
bit,
course.
matching the rhetoric, the things that they talk about with the reality of performance. What are some of the dangers, some of the traps? What are some of the tools they can use? Particularly here in Turkey, how are companies coping with some of this, and where are we?
Sure, thank you very much. I'm a financial advisor, and I'll try to answer this question from the financial advisor perspective. First of all, let me start from the basic, from the ESG. ESG basically, it's a framework to manage long-term and short-term financial and non-financial risk and opportunities. The good side is for the brand, for the image, for the reputation, to attract new talents, and so on. This is the good part. But the dark side of ESG is the greenwashing. Let's speak frankly. I mean, greenwashing is cheating. Whether you like or you don't, it's cheating. And it's unintentionally or unintentionally or intentionally, doesn't matter. It's cheating. You are cheating all stakeholders, like your shareholders. You are cheating your management. You are cheating your investor. You are cheating your employees. You are cheating your financial institutions, all world. So, but today's topic is the board, and we need to answer this question from the board point of view, right? So for the board members' point of view, I can say three different solutions. The first one is the corporate sustainability report. This is crucial, and this is basic. It's a communication tool to communicate with all stakeholders. It's good for the trust, it's good for the transparency, it's good for the increasing the financial performance, it's good for the increasing the market share. This report, I'm sure Yılmaz Bey and is the objective, sustainability objective. These are the abbreviation of SMART. They have to be specific, they have to be measurable, they have to be achievable, they have to be reachable, and they have to be on time bound. So we need to well set the sustainability objective for our KPIs. And KPI also is another matter to discuss on sustainability. For the KPIs, we need to regularly update them. It's a tailor-made and unique for all sectors, for each company. There is no one format of KPIs in ESG, but they have to be unique and well tailor-made for each company. We need to regularly update them, regularly evaluate them. We need to go for open, public conferences, for Q&A stations, and so on. And other than the last two things that I need to add to your question is we need to appoint both external and internal auditor, ESG auditors. External auditors as an independent board member for our board, but they have to be specifically expert on ESG. We can also appoint an internal auditor to our organizations, to our execution team as an ESG expert as an auditor.
And
I don't have any flight.
No, but to my knowledge, a lot of companies in their annual reports produce sustainability information, but typically the auditors are not auditing that information. I mean, is that your experience here in Turkey? Is it additional information as opposed to
definitely additional information? Definitely additional information. For example, as I said, I'm originally a financial advisor, but currently we are working as a finance team for a very large steel company, one of the largest leading steel company in Turkey on ESG on ESG scope of work. We are handling the finance part with our ESG team, EY ESG team, and currently, hopefully, we will start. We just signed the engagement for a very large real estate company, mainly for the ESG. ESG is the future. We need to adapt ourselves, and we need to be ready for it. Please.
If I may add to this, hardly any investor can read and understand the financial statements that comes out at the end of the year. While the assessment of environmental and social and governance efforts and performance has to be fully comprehensively assessed, the outcomes have to be reduced to what ordinary people would be able to understand. Nobody's going to read and be able to sort of distill that report into a meaningful judgment about how that particular enterprise is performing on that front. And if I may have one other comment about the previous speakers, sort of lamenting about the regulation. What I mean by global effort is exactly that. You have to have global consistency of regulation. Otherwise, you're creating this arbitrage opportunity, and different countries are taking different routes, and it's not a sustainable approach. Therefore, but you can't fight the city hall. So the governments make certain economic choices for the country, and that has to bring in all these issues that we're talking about. But if a policy is set, then you have to work within that policy. Of course, you will try to influence the policy. This is what is meant by inclusive decision-making process. But once a policy and regulation is set, you have to adjust yourself to those rules. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Argadan, I'm going to leave you the final word, because we are massively over time. So please take us on.
I think in order for the world to embrace sustainability properly, we need to do something like zero-based budgeting on a regulatory basis, as well as the company and NGOs as well. We cannot take piecemeal by piecemeal bits and parts of sustainability. We have to incorporate sustainability into our daily mantra and how we incentivize the systems. For example, it is very important to have youth unemployment declining, right? This is a very important thing. What are we doing? We are taxing employment. And we are incentivizing unemployment. We need more innovation. What are we doing? We are taxing value added. However, we are not taxing negative externalities. So we should find a way of raising the same amount of taxation. I'm not saying that increase the taxation. But, for example, have the same amount of taxation based on negative externalities and provide incentive on positive externalities. This requires a major shift in the mentality of how governments incentivize things. But it is possible now with the technology and the way we can measure them and so forth. But if we don't do that, we say something, but we incentivize a different type of activity. Okay? Because we tax whatever we can count more easily. We tax people, we tax real estate, we tax profits, whatever. But what we should be doing is we should be taxing negative externalities. We should be taxing carbon. We should be taxing lack of gender diversity in employment, for example. Employment taxes should be based on that. Not put restrictions or whatever, but tax if there is an imbalance there. Put the taxes on those types of things. If we can do that, I think we can move much faster. If we don't align our incentive systems, whether it's in the corporate sector, if you just provide the bonuses based on 1 year's profits, you're not going to get people to focus on long-term investment on social capital and environmental capital and so forth. So we have to do it on the corporate level, we have to do it on the global level, on the regulatory manner and so forth. We are doing bits and pieces, but there isn't any effort to take it as a zero-based budgeting concept, what we should do for a more livable world in the future. That's my final comment. Thank you.
Well, that's a great final comment. I think the alignment of incentives from the regulator all the way through the company is the key issue. If we can get that right, then maybe we can begin to move the needle a little bit more forcefully than we've accomplished so far. Please, please, please thank what is left of my panel for their contribution. That was a great start to the day. So good luck with the rest of the conference. Very, very good. Thank you so much. That was brilliant. Well done, as always. Thank you.